Good morning, everybody. I'm Elise as Another Truth here on YouTube. I hope that you're all doing well and you're taking exceptional care of yourselves. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel and again listening to something that I have to say. Just a quick content warning on this. I will be delving into triggering talk about abusive relationships, unequal relationships, abuse, mental illness, mental disorders, disordered thinking, and so on. I believe that my topic range will cover these. So it is important for you to be aware so that if these are triggering for you, please feel free to leave the video. Now, I did a response to Chantal's question and answer session part 1. I took it down because I felt like it wasn't a very good representation of myself. I felt like I was being more snarky than helpful. I endeavor in this video to maybe bring in a couple of those responses into this shorter video and talk about a point or two of her video discussing more or less the actions and behaviors of another YouTuber, but I will not be discussing that. It's just one or 2 points that she made about her relationship with Sula. So let me just start off by saying that Chantal admitted to all of us, and I think she's done this in the past according to what I have read in response to my own videos and to what has been discussed in the community. Like I said, I don't know Chantal's material as closely as I would with Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. But I do understand from her admission, from Chantal's admission, that she has poor impulse control. That is a very important admission. It's something that people with emotional dysregulation tend not to admit to because they are afraid, they are worried and concerned about how others perceive them, and how we are perceived to others. It ranges. It ranges between different personality disorders, different types of emotional dysregulation, and even within the spectrum of a particular personality disorder. Now, somebody had mentioned in response to the Q&A that I reviewed that she has admitted to having cognitive therapy, that she has admitted to having a personality disorder. I don't know that for a fact because I don't know if she had said as such in the video, if that video exists or not. Now, from what I see of just watching some of the past few videos, hearing people's reactions, but going back to some of her own material, which gives her traffic, but I have to see it for myself, kind of thing. It seems Chantal really does have impulse control. Now, for people with personality disorders, impulse control can come out in many ways. As you might know already, I have a personality disorder. I have a cluster B personality disorder, specifically borderline personality disorder. Now, they say that there are 4 types of BPD. It's really on a spectrum, to be honest. And so where I may be less impulsive, I might be more quiet. Doesn't mean I'm plotting or planning. It just means that, I have stuff that's going on inside and I'm trying to work through it the best that I can. But I still struggle with that inner dialogue of feeling worthless. Now, that can manifest itself into bad behaviors. And for Chantal, it seems that her impulse control, her impulsive behavior, has been a long-standing issue throughout her life. Um, to her credit, that personality disorders or even emotional dysregulation isn't always diagnosed until the child becomes an adult. What happens in this is that the child may not always get the behavioral therapy, may not always have the confidence building blocks that they need, the character development, the emotional assurances that things are okay. And when disappointment comes, that we look at that and feel that and move on. That is also part of the parent's job or the guardian's job to ensure that the child has that there are reasonable expectations, that they can also expect to have love and care and depend on that and understand that that's availed to them, and that some in behavior intervention and not necessarily, I mean, I would say a reward system, but the reward should be in making better decisions. But in my past as a behaviorist, because I was a behaviorist, believe it or not, of all people, I was very good at my job, um, making people the best that they can be. Not being a control freak or a weirdo, but being the best that I could be to the people that I serve so that they could be their best, so that they could feel good about themselves. I wish I had used that more, but I did use a lot of that in controlling my own impulsive behaviors, and that instant gratification isn't something I need at this stage, that delaying gratification is very essential to making wiser decisions. I don't believe, so to Chantal's credit, she may not have had that type of intervention. It may not have been available to her. Um, Before, I had mentioned in a previous video that people should have, or maybe in a response to somebody, that maybe somebody responsible for her character development didn't step in, but quite possibly because of the way these things are diagnosed, at least that I know of in the United States, it's not until they're 18. I don't know what it's like in Canada or anything else. But when children start exhibiting such behaviors, obviously there's a trauma component to it, obviously. But sometimes some people are just born a little different and weird. And if I had more reassurance and stability, that my ultra sensitivity as a child, I could see the reasonable expectation of how I should react to it in real time. I did not have that type of intervention. I was sort of more of a burden to my parents than I was a welcomed addition or somebody that deserved to have that type of intervention. But to my own parents' credit, that simply probably was not available, and I think they were probably worried that I would be removed from the home into a place where I was more vulnerable, because I judged that based on my parents' decision with my early education, and it makes sense. I'm not saying they did the right thing, but it makes sense. So, that said, so should Chantal must have grown up without having structure. People with emotional dysregulation, like myself, we need structure. We need boundaries. We need people setting boundaries around us who are strong in that way, and we need to learn that by example. Okay? That was something that I did not have either. So I can understand how not having these tangible tools of navigating life, especially for someone who is already troubled, can cause how important these tools are for better development, but how a lack of them cause problems in the future. Also, when I think about Chantal's relationship patterns, that is very typical of somebody who has untreated or has difficulty navigating relationships. And a lot of that is based on impulsive and idealistic thinking about partners. And I think that sometimes some people with emotional dysregulation collect partners over time because maybe one of the partners slighted her for something, or maybe she got sick of somebody else, went on to the next. I think that it's reasonable to expect that people will get tired of certain toxic situations and want to leave. However, if you're also the person with toxic behaviors, you are going to go from person to person. Now, it may not be in the same way as other people, but like I said, things are on a spectrum. Like for me with borderline, how I handled relationships was that I would enter into them without giving myself and them sort of a chance to get to know me, period. I would fall fast and in love. To be honest, it wasn't. It was the need to have a family, it was the need to belong, and it was the need to feel wanted and validated for me. I am wondering if that is how Chantal approaches her relationships. And relationships are right now the most highlighted of her instability because of the patterns of burned bridges and the patterns of relationships from one incompatible person to the next. And the relationships with her cats, she betrayed her cats. She had a contract, a social contract with her cats to take care of them. They didn't agree to be under anybody's care, Chantal's care. Chantal likes the idea of a pet. She likes the idea of having living beings, but she doesn't know how to engage with them appropriately. She was not given those tools to do that. Unfortunately, her cats, thank goodness they're still alive and they're thriving by all accounts, but she could have very well ended up unaliving these animals at some point. And I don't know what her history was with mistreatment of animals in the past. There are rumors about that, but I do not have those facts, so I cannot give you my insight on that. But people with the kind of issues she has, there is a problem with relationships with animals and people. She might have exhibited psychopathic behavior when she was young. I don't know, I'm not an expert, but it seems clear that something was seriously wrong. There are people who have exhibited this behavior who have received treatment and unconditional love and care and have grown into stable, wonderful adults. For Chantal, it's not as simple as that. She was involved with Nadir. He is a modified version of Lurch, and in terms of visually, in terms of, he's sort of the Frankenstein of human beings. He's the Frankenstein. And I think that Nadir is a parasite. He stands accused of essaying a number of women. He's been attacked people violently. Interestingly, actually, scarily enough, I have seen some of his videos where he keeps stupidly, foolishly, and dangerously wave around knives in his hand, and even in the presence of his next, his current target. So I have no idea what she saw in this man, but he is completely incapable of anything resembling compassion, care, empathy, control. And he dribbles. His word dribbles. His grunts and moanings and crap, indecipherable rantings remind me so much of Lurch. So Chantal had this relationship where she provided gifts and comfort to this complete loser of a human being whose purpose is still unknown. I don't know why, but that was not a good decision. Then, when that didn't work out, Chantal meets a man online and is instantly in love again. I don't think that, she might have felt betrayed, but her interest is in having a partner right now. And yes, she might be still have some feelings for Lurch, but I don't know how that's possible. I don't know how it's possible. And she wants to move along in her life with this new man, Sula, but Sula is completely incapable, probably unwilling, to give Chantal the emotional care, the unconditional love that someone should give her, at least to be her friend. What type of a man goes online and convinces a woman with her unstable mental health, her precarious health situation overall, leave everything to go over there without so much as knowing her? Now, maybe in his culture, maybe in his religion, it's not appropriate to have a dating period. Definitely not. I would think of how conservative Sula is and how warped he is as a person. And what kind of a man does that? He is not interested in her well-being. If he really loved her and wanted to be with her, he would have found a way somehow to go to Canada. He would have found some way. Now, I don't know what his immigration status is in Kuwait. I don't know if he went there as a migrant or a migrant worker or a or whatever, or if he had family already established in Kuwait. I have no idea. But if he did have any type of stability there in Kuwait, don't you think that he would have found a way to get to, not the United States, to Canada to meet her and be with her? I'm pretty sure she's the one who insisted on going there. And she wanted to run away from her problems here. And she pretty much had given up her life in Canada, which is foolish in my opinion, because, with her healthcare status and everything, I don't know how she's going to juggle that, because she won't get that level of care in Kuwait, especially her mental health care that I know of. And additionally, she has moved into this substandard apartment, and I will say that because it's virtually or practically windowless. I can't imagine any fresh air, sunlight, things that she would need to feel better. I'm sure she's low on vitamin D like the rest of us from this region. While I'm from the northeast of the United States in Massachusetts, and vitamin D deficiency is quite common here. That vitamin D deficiency can lead to a lot of serious health problems. And because of her obesity and her other things that are going on, she is going to have very painful arthritis if she doesn't have it already. I'm concerned about that. And I'm only speaking as a lay person from my understanding. I don't have a healthcare background, professionally anyway. So I don't know how she is with this man who doesn't love her, and I'm convinced he doesn't love her. This is strictly transactional. I think she knows in the back of her mind this is transactional, but it's such a great conflict with what she wants emotionally. I think she is aware of those things. She talked about wanting a family. She talked about establishing some level of stability. This relationship is not predicated on stability. It was a completely impulsive and nonsensical move that is to the detriment of Chantal. And Sula knows this. Now, he might have thought, oh, this Miss Moneybags is coming here for me, and we're going to have a fruitful life together because she's going to make all this money. And Chantal even said herself, she blew it. She blew it all on her impulsive behaviors, on her recklessness. And I'll tell you, Salah, I would assume that in his faith or in his culture, I don't know if having multiple wives is even legal in Kuwait, but eventually he's going to want to take on a second wife, one who can sire his progeny, because I can't even imagine him being a father at this point. And also, he's very, very young. But I don't see, he needs to propagate for his faith. I'm thinking that's how he's thinking. But he is going to look for that. And from what I understand, that adoption, depending on, I guess, the culture and the family, they may not be allowed to adopt or want to adopt. Chantal, from what I understand, and I will say this delicately, she is unable to have biological children of her own. And I don't know if Islam permits other forms of bringing children into the family. I don't know where this is going to leave Chantal. She could have had that independently in Canada. With what she was making online, she could have gotten her emotional dysregulation and stuff, and her mental health. She says that she has mental health issues under control. She could have purchased a home of her own, could still be making payments on it. She could have regulated her channel a bit and got control of her eating dysregulation or her disordered eating in some way over time. I know it's really hard. I have disordered eating. I have a diagnosed disordered eating problem. I have to take medication. I have to do a lot of cognitive therapy for it and keeping track of things. But she's not even keeping track of those things. So while she could have had that in Canada where it was safer for her, it's more of a culture that she understands, that she grew up in. She could have done all of these things quite independently. She didn't need Sula. She didn't need Nadir. She didn't need Pete's. She didn't need anybody to do that. She could have done that entirely on her own. I wanted to add that doing these videos about Chantal have been especially triggering for a number of reasons. Sometimes when I talk about something, it's usually something I need to learn, I need to recognize in myself. Being upfront and honest with the raw emotions of having unstable relationships still trouble me. It's still there. The wounds of being betrayed or being the one who betrayed. Feeling like I'm not normal sometimes because I'm not partnered up. All those weird insecurities, all the nightmares about the relationships, the anxiety, the regrets of my behavior in relationships. It hit every single note of all of those feelings I kept tucked away. And in another way, discussing these videos, I more or less use it as a barometer to just kind of, in a way, to understand how I have interacted in my own relationships. While I know that, but to hear myself talk about these things is quite another. I could not talk about some of these things even 10 years ago because it was so raw and so painful and so embarrassing and so degrading. But I don't feel like that anymore. I feel like coming to terms with these challenges and understanding what I need in relationships and having that level of power in my relationships, the power of how I react in the relationships, addressing what I need, what I want, and establishing strict boundaries. So it has been quite an ordeal to do this, at least for me emotionally, because it brought up a lot of things. Even as I talked about my perspective on someone else's behavior, it's also a reflection of me, of how I have interacted in my own relationship over the course of my lifetime. What relationships signified to me when I was young, the stuff I didn't learn, the disappointments that were not discussed with me in a mature way that an adult should help a child understand disappointment. The constant feeling of rejection, and having that constant feel of rejection all the time, all those feelings, I would preemptively reject people. And I've had to be exceptionally hard because it's important for me to have boundaries. It's important for everybody. But I need very strict boundaries on who I choose to relate with or not. Now, I thought I had internet friendships, but they weren't. They were just glorified acquaintances. And that's okay, because essentially people on the internet are strangers and acquaintances. However, there was this one friendship I had for nearly 20 years, internet friendship, and still a relationship. And I won't go into the complexity of this particular relationship, but this person is a family person. They have children, and he's a very happily married man. He wasn't when I first met him. But over the course of the friendship, he has shown me what stability is, what determination is. And he had a very good, solid personality, a very solid human being. When the election in 2016 happened, I blocked this friend. I blocked him. This is a man who, as a friend, proved time and time again that he was a supportive person. And he cherished the fact that I was a left-winger. And he respected my position. He respected he loves the history of Massachusetts. Of course he would. I'm not sure I'm as happy about it as he is, because we have differences. We had differences. I don't know what he's doing now, because I burned that bridge. I ruined that friendship. But this is a man who sent birthday gifts to my daughter when we lived in South Africa. This is a man who sent birthday gifts to my kids on their birthdays. This is a man who was emotionally stable and supportive. I threw that friendship away because of my own extremism. And I wouldn't say extremism, but you know what I mean, my extreme points of view, that I could not possibly continue this friendship. It may not have been possible, but I didn't give it a chance to see how it would play out, because I felt there were other things riding on my perspective, my peace of mind, whatever, because of what is going on, the political and social climate, and many of the things that I talk about in my videos. But he had never said that he was against any of these things. But it's not the point. The point is that I ruined a 20-year friendship for bullshit. Shame on me. My loss. Luckily, his wife had communicated to me very sparingly, very pleasantly. She's a decent, wonderful woman. Honorable, honest person. They all are. That entire family is. And shame on me. My loss, but shame on me I didn't give him the decency of an explanation. And that I at least did not give space when space was needed. So that is one of my regrets, among many. Among many. So thinking about the situation with Chantal and talking about what I see of her, I also see my own undoings. And it's important when I'm talking about anybody else that I also understand. Am I projecting here? Is there a reflection I need to carefully examine and look at and think about? And there certainly is. This was a very hard video for me to do. And it puts somebody else on the line. So whether or not anybody listens to it, I guess at this point it doesn't matter. But it is, like I said, that barometer by which I can more or less test the pressure of what I'm feeling and saying and being able to work through that, to know where I am in my life, to know where I stand, to know what I need to work on for myself. I hope Chantal avails herself to real new change. It's really sad to see somebody not have that willingness to do it. But I also have to be sensitive to the fact that I can't look at this as a corporate America way of dealing with mental illness and other disorders, because that is on an individual basis and it's up to the person going through it. Anyway, that's all I have to say, but thank you for listening to me and my rambling. I do appreciate it. And I hope that you have a safe evening. Take care. Bye-bye.